Alright guys, I'll be calculating the average percentage difference between a historical figure's height, weight, and BMI to see which existing Pokemon best matches with the associated figure. The data for the Pokemon sizes were collected with Pokemon Database, and the data for the historical figures came from various sources from Google, so they may or may not be 100% accurate. Let's start with Adolf Hitler, the dictator of Germany during the Nazi period, and the reason behind the Second World War due to Germany's invasion of Poland. He stands at 5'9", weighing 170 pounds, and has a BMI value of 25.1. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Galarian Slowking, which had a height similarity of 97%, weight similarity of 97%, and BMI similarity of 97.5%. for an overall similarity score of 97.2%. The next closest Pokemon are Dragalge and Golduck. Up next is Albert Einstein, a German physicist who is most famous for his theory of relativity. He stands at 5'7", weighing 198 pounds, and has a BMI value of 31.1. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Charizard, which had a height similarity of 100%, weight similarity of 99%, and BMI similarity of 99.5%, for an overall similarity score of 99.5%. The next closest Pokemon are Go-Go and Rapidash. Up next is Napoleon Bonaparte, one of the greatest military generals in human history. He stands at 5'6.5", weighing 174 pounds, and has a BMI value of 27.7. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Swalot, which had a height similarity of 99.5%, weight similarity of 98.5%, and BMI similarity of 100%, for an overall similarity score of 99.35%, just fractions ahead of Typhlosion and Golduck. And for those wondering, Empoleon had the 5th highest comparison at 95.8%. Up next is George Washington, a founding father and the first president of the United States. He stands at 6'2", weighing 174 pounds, and has a BMI value of 22.4. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Crobat, which had a height similarity of 95.5%, weight similarity of 95%, and BMI similarity of 97%, for an overall similarity score of 95.8%. The next closest Pokemon are Galarian Slowking and Slowking. Up next is Mahatma Gandhi, who is best known for leading the Indian independence movement through non-violent resistance against British rule. He stands at 5'5", weighing 101 pounds, and has a BMI value of 16.9. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Volcarona and Obstagoon, which had a height similarity of 97%, weight similarity of 99.5%, and BMI similarity of 93.5%, for an overall similarity score of 96.7%. The next closest Pokemon is Skarmory. Up next is Martin Luther King Jr., who is known for his leadership in the American Civil Rights Movement and his advocacy for the nonviolent resistance to achieve equality for African Americans. He stands at 5'6", weighing 152 pounds, and has a BMI value of 24.2. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Ceruledge, which had a height similarity of 94.5%, weight similarity of 89.5%, and BMI similarity of 100%, for an overall similarity score of 94.64%. just fractions ahead of Cyclizar and Runerigus. Up next is Robert Wadlow, the tallest person ever recorded in human history. He stands at 8'11", weighing 439 pounds, and has a BMI value of 27. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Zamazenta, which had a height similarity of 93.5%, weight similarity of 94.5%, and BMI similarity of 92.5%, for an overall similarity score of 93.5%. The next closest Pokemon are Scolipede and Aurorus. Up next is Chandra Bahadur Dongi, the shortest person ever recorded in human history. He stands at 1'9.5", weighing 31 pounds, and has a BMI value of 48.6. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Hisuian Voltorb, which had a height similarity of 90.5%, weight similarity of 92.5%, and BMI similarity of 93%, for an overall similarity score of 92%, just fractions ahead of Poochyena and Chinchou. Up next is John Brower Minuch, the heaviest person ever recorded in human history. He stands at 6'1", weighing 1,400 pounds, and has a BMI value of 185.5. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Metagross, which had a height similarity of 85.5%, weight similarity of 85.5%, and BMI similarity of 85.5%, for an overall similarity score of 85.5%. The next closest Pokemon are Glastrier and Avalugg. Up next is Lucia Zarate, the lightest person ever recorded in human history. She stands at 2'3", weighing 5 pounds, and has a BMI value of 4.3. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Poipole, which had a height similarity of 87.5%, weight similarity of 77.5%, and BMI similarity of 85%, for an overall similarity score of 83.4%. The next closest Pokemon are Jumpluff and Shuppet. Up next is Nikola Tesla, a Serbian inventor and engineer, known for his contributions to the design of the modern alternating current electricity supply system. He stands at 6'2", weighing 142 pounds, and has a BMI value of 18.8. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Aerodactyl, which had a height similarity of 95.5%, weight similarity of 91%, and BMI similarity of 99.5%, for an overall similarity score of 95.5%. The next closest Pokemon are Quaquaval and Toedscruel. Up next is Simo Heiha, the greatest sniper in human history, who has killed 505 Soviet soldiers during the Winter War, giving him the nickname of the White Death. He stands at 5'3", weighing 139 pounds, and has a BMI value of 24.6. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Cyclizar, which had a height similarity of 100%, weight similarity of 99.5%, and BMI similarity of 100%, for an overall similarity score of 99.97%. The next closest Pokemon are Ceruledge and Runerigus. Up next is Queen Elizabeth II. She holds the record for longest reigning British monarch, reigning for over 70 years. She stands at 5'4", weighing 154 pounds, and has a BMI value of 26.3. The Pokemon with the closest size comparison is Hisuian Typhlosion, which had a height similarity of 98%, weight similarity of 100%, and BMI similarity of 96.5%, for an overall similarity score of 98.12%, just fractions ahead of Magmortar and Bisharp. This video is relatively shorter than other of its kind, but that's because most historical figures don't have their height and weight measured or even estimated, but regardless, that's about it.